أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of our TV program My Journey Through Islam. Today's guest is Brother Abdul Jabbar Stubbings from York, and we'll inshallah talk to him about his journey, where it began, what was it that made him be interested in Islam, and what has brought him to where he is today. So assalamu alaikum and welcome, Abdul Jabbar.
Wa alaikum salam.
I think what we want to know is, where did your journey begin? Where was the initial start of your interest in Islam or interest in religion in general?
My first connection with religion was when I was a child. So for my first 10 years I used to attend church regularly with my family. We used to get dressed up on a Sunday. It was a ritual. We went to the church, came back. On top of that I did Bible studies. So I went to, did those as additional things in the evenings, went round to someone's house. We studied the Bible, learnt about things like the parables and so on. And that went all the way, went on until I reached the age of 11.
Okay, so you were from a practicing Christian family?
Yes, we were practicing Christians. And I was what I'd call, at the time, very devout. And
so that led on to, you said, till what age?
Till I was 11. When I was 11, my mother fell ill, and during that period I prayed and prayed that she'd make a recovery. And after she was in hospital all this time. It was her kidneys which were the issue, and she was on dialysis. And after about 8 or 9 months, I think, she died. And despite all my prayers, I felt that they'd been totally ignored, not answered. I felt devastated and betrayed in a way. As a consequence of that, I stopped going to church and basically turned my back on religion and God in general. Right.
So, due to this incident, of course, it's a traumatic experience, especially for an 11-year-old. Praying to God, asking God to save your mother, and the unfortunate thing happened that she passed away, meaning that you felt pushed away in a way because you felt that your prayers were not answered. So you completely left the fold of Christianity, say? Your belief was still there, or had it gone by this point?
I don't think it had totally gone, but I felt bitter and, like I say, let down. And as a consequence of what happened, my life changed drastically, obviously, because my father was left to bring us up on his own. There were three children, and it was very difficult for us. My youngest sister had to go away and live with relatives, so it was a very, very difficult time. We had people come, some housekeepers that came to stay with us. They turned out to be not so good people. So all along I felt it was just building up and building up. And it was, I lost that connection that I had, and it carried on like that even to my first marriage. So when I first married, we had again we had 3 children, but I didn't actually bring them up in the same way I was brought up.
Yeah, so there was no kind of religious background with regards to your family itself?
No.
Okay.
So we basically, we weren't bad people. We still had the same good morals. But there was not that belief or that connection with God that. And this was obviously a consequence of something that happened years back. I mean, with Islam, we believe that those who Allah guides, nobody can misguide, and those who are misguided, nobody can guide. So, moving on from that, you married and you had a few children, but you were not from a religious family. Where did the journey take you then? Did you study in a certain field? Did you work in a certain place? What area were you based in? When I reached 18, before I got married, I went to study chemistry at university.
Okay.
So I graduated as a chemist,
Yeah.
and then I joined a public analyst laboratory in Kent, and worked there for I think about 13 years.
Wow. Okay.
So I practiced as an analytical chemist, and then I got a chance to move back to where I was born, which was Norfolk.
Okay.
So I moved back to Norfolk with my family, and settled down, started working there, and then there was another major sort of big family disaster in that my wife was killed. So, and that was a car accident. So again, I felt, in a way, it was a bit like history repeating itself.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I was left like my father was left, with 3 children to bring up, and that seemed to be my life then. It was just concentrating simply on bringing up my children, doing the best for them, and it was like that was my only mission in life. That was the whole purpose, to actually bring up my children.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything else.
Yeah, I can understand from what you must have been through. It seems as though disaster after disaster after disaster, nothing positive with regards to God or any godly kind of intervention in your life. So at this point you are a scientist. You've been working for quite some time. And what was it that led you on to the next chapter of your life? Maybe with regards to, if you speak a little bit about what you actually do. I mean, at the moment, alhamdulillah, you're Muslim, but this was previous to Islam, and you're working in science itself. A lot of people find that there is a contradiction between Islam and science, or any religion and science sometimes. So was there anything within your field that maybe sparked some sort of a light inside, or was it just you were just living your life for the sake of, for example, your children?
I was living my life for the sake of my children. I see no conflict between science and a belief in God. I don't follow the sort of Dawkins point of view. I see no contradiction whatsoever. But at the time, I say there was something inside me, but it was still not ready to emerge, shall we say. And so I was, like I say, it was just a routine I got into: work, home, I'd look after the children, cook, clean, and it was just...
So you were playing the mother and the father role.
The humdrum, it was very humdrum in terms of there was nothing else. Nothing else. There was something missing from my life, I must admit. So
there was something missing. I think that's usually the key, isn't it? There was something missing. You probably didn't know what it was. You probably didn't know why it was, but there was something that was missing. What was your lifestyle like? I mean, there are some people who say that they used to be really bad people. I'm not asking for details, but what kind of lifestyle was it, apart from the home, the cooking, the cleaning? And
there was, because of the problems with, obviously, my children were young, and so I didn't have much opportunity to go out. So when I did go out, it would be with colleagues at work. We'd go out for a drink and so on, and maybe pub quizzes, the usual thing. So the social life was more around going out for a drink than anything else. Not much in terms of, I'd obviously take the children out for different, for days out and so on, but my own social life in terms of getting together with friends would usually be for a drink. Just
for a social kind of gatherings and enjoyments, really. So moving on from there, were you ever exposed to, say, Muslims or Islam at this point? I'm not talking about maybe later on, but at this point in your life, were there anything around you?
I never had no contact at all with any Muslim. I didn't have a clue about Islam.
Okay.
It wasn't part of the curriculum at any school I went to.
Okay.
And I never even came into contact with Muslims, not that I know of anyway, at university. So I was totally in a vacuum in a way in terms of Islam. Okay.
I think what we'll do there is we'll stop there for now, but inshallah we'll continue after the break, and we'll look at more at your lifestyle, your work, and what led you onto inquiring about Islam maybe, what led you onto thinking that, we talked about that thing that was missing, looking at how you filled that gap, or you filled that piece that was missing inside you. Thank you very much, and inshallah we will ask you to join us after the break. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to another episode of My Journey Through Islam with Brother Abdul Jabbar Stubbings. So we have now reached a point in your life where you're going out with friends, you're drinking and you're enjoying yourself, and you're looking after your children as well as being the mother and the father role at home. At the same time, you're working as an analytical scientist? Chemist, okay. And just tell us a little bit more about that and maybe your lifestyle at work.
I work for a government agency, so it's to do with looking at food residues, residues of different chemicals in food. Over the years, I've developed both in terms of analytical chemistry. So this involves taking, say, a piece of meat, extracting it, getting things like pesticide residues out, drug residues out, veterinary drug residues out, and then we analyse how much is present. And this is all to do with food safety, to establish that farmers are obeying best practice, that any animals that are administered with veterinary drugs, they are giving what we call a proper withdrawal period. So that means that there has to be a time when drugs are administered, that the last administration has to be a certain time before they can be killed.
Okay.
So otherwise you get residues which can be build up and accumulate in people, or be even in some cases toxic.
Yeah, it seems very interesting. It seems very technical as well. What was life like working in this environment with those around you?
I had a good working relationship with everybody. I've always tried to help. I'm an experienced chemist, so I have a lot of knowledge to actually impart, so people would come to me, ask me questions, and no matter what I was doing, I would always try and make time to make sure that they could actually get the answer, or even if I didn't know the answer, I'd try and help them find the answer from somebody else. So I always felt that it was my obligation, if you like, to actually do my best for people, to actually help them as much as I could.
You can see kind of good traits within yourself, especially when now looking at you as a Muslim. These traits that we are obliged to do and we are taught to do, these were natural and innate in a way, as we say fitra, which is the natural inclination towards God. That was already there within yourself. So back to your kind of life and working environment, what was it that led you on to maybe being exposed to Islam in any way?
Well, because I was quite a senior chemist within the team, there came to a point where we needed to recruit somebody. This person was, we were looking at an agency because we wanted someone temporary. So we advertised for this post, and this lady came along, attended the interview. I helped with the interview, and we offered her the post basically. And there was a sort of there was a delay, and then alhamdulillah she took the post.
Okay. So this person, was she somebody who you're used to kind of seeing in this environment, somebody different, or was there any lessons to be learned in a way from hiring this person?
Well, she was Asian, which is not a problem as far as I'm concerned, but that was the only thing that distinguished her from, say, a lot from some of the other people that I was working with. So we employed her, and the only thing I noticed was that when she was working, she would, every now and again, she would disappear. She would pick up something and disappear. So one day I sort of said, "Well, where are you off to?" And she said, "I'm off to pray." And I just thought, well, that's strange. I mean, off to pray? What does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah.
So over the weeks that followed, we started talking, and I even one day said, "You're not like I'd expect a Muslim woman to be." She says, "Well, how many do you know?" And that's
yeah, that makes you think, because you were saying that you're not really exposed to Islam as such. You never really met many Muslims that you knew of. So to meet somebody who is a Muslim, who goes off to pray, I think this is a good opportunity for yourself. What kind of questions did you ask, if you can remember? What kind of questions with regards to Islam?
Well, she was actually, she asked me what I thought about God, and I told her a bit about my story, and she sort of curious. I don't know what it was, but there was a spark between us, and so over the time she started talking more about Islam. She gave me tapes by, I think it was Sarah Joseph, and there were some others. Then she introduced me to some other brothers who actually I had no idea about. They were actually working in the same area. They were praying, had a little prayer room, and she introduced me to them. And they also started talking to me. So amongst them was a brother you know well, Dawood, and another brother, Kamruddin, who is probably got a very good, has got a reputation amongst moon sightings. So these were very knowledgeable and very sort of friendly brothers that helped me and sort of started talking to me and said, "Don't, no rush, rush into, don't rush into this." It's
kind of an introduction.
So they introduced me. They did. There was no pressure. There was no sort of hard sell. Nothing. It was all left down to my pace. And if I was interested, they would carry on.
It's your choice at the end. But what the beauty of it is, I think, that you mentioning that they were actually working in the same area as you, maybe even the same.
I've never met them.
But you've never met them before,
No,
again, that shows when you are a Muslim, it doesn't mean that you're suddenly completely different and completely changed. You can live your life. You can work in a scientific environment. You can be amongst other people, but it doesn't mean that you go out there with a badge on your top or writing on your t-shirt saying, "I'm Muslim, beware, keep away," kind of thing. But once you were introduced to other Muslim people, what was the impression that you got from these people? What kind of people were they? Were they kind of extreme in their views? Were they different to other people, or did they have certain attributes or characteristics that you maybe were attracted to?
I mean, they were definitely very ethically right in terms of everything was. There was no sort of deceit or anything. Everything was upfront and honest, and I felt they were people you could trust. Absolutely trust.
So you felt a kind of a connection with these people as well. And you were saying that they were talking to you about Islam, but they were not force feeding Islam down your throat. They were just telling you about it because obviously when you love something, you want to share it with people around you as well. And if you trust them, then you must have got some impression. So what was it? Because we're going to go to the end of the show, inshallah, towards the break. But what was it that was attracting you and leaning you towards actually taking the Shahada itself?
Obviously, as a Christian, I was brought up with the idea of the Trinity, and that didn't really always sit well with me. When they explained about Islam, there was obviously a lot of similarity with Christian doctrine, but obviously the Trinity is a big difference. And the more I read about Islam, the more I actually came in tune with it. It struck a chord with me. It seemed right. So there was other books they gave me. Like I say, there was no pressure. They just gave me books to read on to get a background on Islam. I don't even think they may have given me the Quran. I think a Picthel edition, but as you say, as I think you've already said, the Quran is a bit difficult to get into.
It can be.
You can start reading it, but I think the Picthel one is anyway is an old English, a bit like some of the old Bibles, to be quite honest. But it was a bit heavy going. But the more inspirational was the stories of some of the other reverts, like Susan Hanif and Sarah Joseph, and they were more inspirational. Others gave me stuff on the science of the Quran.
Brilliant.
So obviously seeing as I was a scientist, they thought that might. So there are obviously lots of things in the Quran which relate to science, the development of the embryo and the water cycle and other things. So they gave me printouts on that.
Fantastic.
And so from a scientific point of view, I thought, well, this is good, because to actually have something from that era, that time, on this on science, it's not something you put in, because science changes all the time.
Yeah.
Science develops. So if you put something in, you have to be right, because if it changes, that text loses credibility. So it has to be right from that point onwards.
Consistently
and
right.
that's not a thing that can be taken lightly. It's something that is key. That the text, if it's the word of God.
What we'll do is we'll stop you there, and inshallah when we return for the second episode with brother Abdul Jabbar Stubbings, we'll continue his story, and we'll know more about how he entered Islam, how he accepted Islam, what made give him that boost to accept Islam. Inshallah. Thank you very much for watching us, and we'll hope that you can join us in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.